Hello and welcome to yet another episode of the Brody Moore podcast. I'm also known as Liefx to almost every single one of you listeners. I appreciate all you listeners. I'm on multiple platforms. Of course, we are always on YouTube first on Mondays. So make sure to subscribe and like button to not miss an episode. Or if you like just audio, you can head over to Spotify. We're on there as well. Episode does actually come out earlier on Spotify, but only for subscribers. I don't suggest you do that because the episode's free the next day. I just have it there because Spotify makes me do something with subscribers. But two of you, for some reason, have wasted your money and subscribed. I see you, and thank you so much for supporting the podcast. But if you'd like to get involved in the discussion, head over to the YouTube video. It will be linked in the description, and the podcast on Spotify reverse underneath the YouTube video. But get in the comments, join the discussion. This is enough preamble. You want to get to the guest. This has been a fun one to try to get sorted out. The question has always been, what happens when you get two people with ADHD trying to plan a get-together, and it's a very long time coming podcast episode with Jorblinsky. It's Mr. Joey Ahrens. Jorby, thank you for joining me.
Thank you, Brody Liefx Moore. And yes, a very difficult task indeed to get us in the same room. But we finally did it.
And not even to that, it took us forever to get this done. And I was also late getting into the call.
That's true. But yeah, like I said, that was proper retaliation for the months that you've been asking me.
It was 100% malicious, pre-thought out, premeditated attack on your time. Let's start there. ADHD is a blessing and a curse sometimes. I feel, it gives us the ability to go ham more so than most people. If we get suddenly interested in a topic, we're going to know more about it than you do in just under 24 hours, probably. The problem is that next week we probably won't care about that topic, or we'll go like 3 weeks just caring about that topic and then move onward. Do you find it difficult sometimes, or frustrating maybe, that it's like we bounce around so much? Because I feel like you're the same.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think the frustrating thing for me is actually feeling like, because I get really excited about something and I want to share it. Like I want to share with my friends. I'm like, look at this thing that I have, or like I do it to my wife all the time. I'm like this thing, and then like I'll just go on for like ever about it. And sometimes it's like not about something anyone else even knows about. So they're like, listening, but like not actually being able to share in the excitement. Not that the expectation is that they do, but yeah, that is one thing I have to like check on myself. It's like, wait, how long have I been talking about this? I've just been rambling.
The good thing though is like, I think a lot of people, because I've done that before where I was like, I'm sorry, you probably don't care about this. A lot of times people be like, no, it's cool. They just like to see someone with passion. A lot of times people, and what you get with ADHD is definitely passion. That goes through to your work too as a commentator. I mean, your passion is probably one of your most defining features of your commentary style.
I think my energy and my passion is by far the number one thing that I see mentioned about me of something that people love. So I definitely would say it's my number one defining feature. And I would personally, agree with everybody that passion is my number one defining feature. It's always been who I am with whatever I'm doing. I always do it extremely passionately.
We'll save Rocket League talk for later. I want to stay a bit on the ADHD to give, because first off, there'll be people listening that have ADHD that are relating right now and be like, yeah, and others that want to be informed on what it's like, because I do find it's often there's a lot of misconception to what ADHD is. A lot of times it can come off as and I've felt this about myself. It can come across as like we're being lazy sometimes. If we're late to things, for me specifically, it comes across in time management, very difficult for me. Yes. Just things. It's easy for me to say, oh, I got 10 minutes left. Okay, cool. I got plenty of time to brush my teeth, shave, put in my but then no, that actually takes 15 to 20 minutes.
Yeah, no, kings of being like, oh, I can fit an entire session of Pokemon Emerald in this 15 minutes that I have left. Like it's not the actual thought you have, but it's like the throughput. you can't go that fast.
Yeah. Because part of the problem is that time management, like there's like a severance in our brain physically that does not allow time management to work properly unless you're hyper focusing on it. As something as a host, I can do very well. To the second I can.
But then that's all you're focused on then, right?
Yeah.
All you're thinking about is the time, and then you're not actually dedicating your brain space to the thing you're supposed to be spending your time on. So it's a funny catch-22 there.
Right, exactly. And actually my OBS right now, to make sure my brain never wanders there, I have it slightly offset so the recording time is just off the bottom under my Windows taskbar, so I can't see it. So right now my brain is here.
We could have already been here for 3 hours. And
I think it has been.
I wouldn't even know either.
I
think we got pretty far here.
Great episode. Let's end it. Yeah, thanks for coming on the Friday. Ends up being the short. That would be for an ADHD episode. It would either have to be the shortest episode ever or the by far longest episode ever.
Yeah, your first YouTube short on the interviews.
It's the entire episode.
Yeah. Oh man,
that's funny. So for you personally, I'm curious. Then, do you find ADHD to be more of a blessing or a curse? Like, are there times where you wish you didn't have it, or have you learned to say no? This is a superpower. I want this.
No, there's definitely many times I wish I didn't have it. It's still coming to a place of full acceptance with myself, but it really just comes from the frustration of the things that I find hard to manage. Like time management is something that I struggle, like a core struggle of mine. And I really struggle with like inattentiveness as well. Like engaging in conversation is an active, even when I'm passively listening, it's an active task for me, because if I could be looking at your face and you're saying something and I'm like acknowledging it, but I'm thinking about something else. But the weird thing about that is like a lot of times you don't even realize it's happening. Like you yourself think that you're listening, and because you're not really tracking that thought that's going on in the top of your head, and then you end up confused because you're like, why can't I remember what you just said? I heard everything you said, now I can't remember it. So like that's something I definitely struggle with. I think the side that more people are talking about now, but not necessarily in the past, is like the emotional regulation. And like my journey, at least lately, has been understanding my emotions and why I get into certain emotional states. And it can be hard to exit an emotion when you have ADHD. It's all encompassing, all powerful, right? So that's also been like a core struggle. So like those things have adversely affected me. So it's hard for me to look at ADHD as something like a superpower, and more like something that I need to manage and keep kind of like keep on a leash a little bit, because if I just let it go, if I just let my brain go,
right,
then it won't be good for either my productivity, my relationships, X, Y, and Z. So, everyone's symptoms manifest differently and everyone goes through different things.
Yeah.
So, if you're out there with ADHD and, you identify with one or two of these things, or you don't identify with any of them, like that's totally okay. Everyone's got their own battle with it.
Which is why I ask about it, because like while there will be a lot of similarities, there's going to be differences because our brains are different, right? I found that when I was younger, the impulsiveness was a lot worse. The anger, it was very, as you said, emotions were very easy to get riled up. And I think over the past couple of years, just through a few different methods, my patience levels have been very good. I've found a way that works, but it could just be that my brain, the chemistry changed or something, right? So there's going to be those differences. For me, I don't know if you struggle with this. For me, the biggest thing with ADHD part of the thing with ADHD is there's the highway that delivers dopamine. The certain parts of the brain just doesn't deliver dopamine. Which is why a lot of people with ADHD, it's very easy for them to get addicted to things, whether it's browsing Twitter, whether it's substance. It's very easy because that is instant gratification. There's your dopamine. Now I feel good to be able to do stuff. And that's why it's very hard for an ADHD person to sit there, because it's uncomfortable. And to me, a lot of times it's physically uncomfortable. For instance, one of my worst routines is going to bed. I brushing my teeth, flossing, taking my contacts out, to me is such an enormous task, because when I think about it, there's no dopamine flowing. So there's no initial kickstart of my brain saying, it would feel good to start those things right now and go to sleep, because there's nothing in my brain saying feel good right now when you think these things. So what I do is I say, I need to feel good real quick. Let me do one more round of Marvel Snap. Right. And then I don't go to sleep on time. I don't know if do you ever, like, I physically get uncomfortable because of that lack of dopamine.
Yeah, I've definitely experienced that. There's actually something that I always thought was really weird, and I never knew how to like properly explain it. But if like you could feel when you don't have it, right? You could feel when you're just completely out of dopamine. And one thing that I found really fascinating is this happens when I'm either watching something, like watching a show, or like a movie, or if I'm playing a game. Uh, and this only really happens unmedicated, where if I'm playing a game and I'm not getting the outcome that like I'm trying to get, like if I keep messing up, like physically my forehead will literally start squeezing like right in the center, and it's so bad it actually like forces me to like squeeze my eyes shut. Like it's so bad that I have to like stop what I'm doing. Like I've heard from other people like similar like physical like physical constrictions almost, that like your body is literally revolting because it doesn't have the required chemical to operate. It's, to me, it's extremely fascinating, and I actually don't think that there's a lot of like, I don't think there's a lot of research out there about the physical like the physical symptoms that I believe are very real.
Right. Yeah. I mean, again, to even to the point that I've obviously done a lot of research on it too. I've gone on the rabbit hole of watching lectures and and reading papers. But even what you just talked about, something I missed, but I was more of on the I do know about the physical. Like, I mean, the lack of dopamine is a physical thing.
Right.
And you're right. Even that is like that's known and documented, but it's not in presentations talked about as much, because I feel a lot of presenters tend to, I don't know if they're dumbing it down, I don't know what they're doing, but they sometimes just miss out on presenting that information.
I don't even think they know. Like I don't know if they even know, because sometimes that happens and I think something else is wrong with me, but it's so consistent with me not getting the desired outcome when it happens, and it's always when I'm on when I'm not on my meds that day. So like, at least to me, I'm making that personal connection, because as soon as I start hitting the thing, like if I take a second and then I do the thing and I get it right, nothing right here. And it could just be like maybe it's a stress thing, and you need dopamine to regulate your stress. So like maybe it's a physical stress response, which would make sense to me. But yeah,
that's interesting. My brain just did an ADHD thing. I went like 10 routes that I wanted to talk about just on that topic alone.
10 threads. Wait, I couldn't grab any of them. Like,
one of them, I'll go to here. We're now the Joe Rogan podcast. You ever tried DMT? No. What I do like though is that there are, in Canada actually, there's a lot of research being put into other like psilocybin and that. As medication for these things, because what those things do, so doing like small doses, is that actually regulates the dopamine. It gives you a constant kind of push of dopamine, so that way even just the initial thought process of like, I should clean my room, is being thought of at the same time dopamine is being pushed, and that now says, hey, I feel good, I should go clean my room.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting. Like the effects like microdosing, and obviously like the research is still pretty new because it's been more accepted now. But it's really interesting because it seems like, at least with a lot of the research with psilocybin, like the big thing about it is it encourages neurogenesis, right? And at least in our brains that are wired a little bit differently, there are certain regions that aren't talking to each other that should be talking to each other. And I feel like based on, the research that I've seen, they've done a couple of like, not real imaging, but like simulated imaging of what your brain is doing, and the activity in your brain is so much more, it's so much fuller. And so like you're saying like constant stream of dopamine, to me, you're just describing like being neurotypical. Like,
yeah.
like,
No, and that's
you know what I mean? Like it's crazy. And like there's so much research out there about like new research being done about psilocybin that to me it's a no-brainer to keep like researching with that, and microdosing from accounts I've read for people that have taken it for ADHD, it's been as effective as like their normal medication. And some people like even do like they'll combine it, and they report like just as good results with like how they're doing. I think the biggest thing that the interesting thing to me with psilocybin and like its effect is like it doesn't, and this is true for meds as well, like because I think a lot of people think that people take meds and they just expect things to just work, and it's not really how it is, right? It's a tool.
The room doesn't suddenly clean itself. You still have to utilize.
You don't all of a sudden understand your emotions just because you microdose.
Yeah,
I mean, like you have to actually like know the process. And at least for me, and maybe this isn't an ADHD like specific thing, but like there's that thing of like knowing what to do but not knowing how to do it, like needing the step-by-step breakdown. I think the thing that I was like, the example I like to bring up is like learning how to do a mechanic in Rocket League is like, it feels like a lot of people figure it out intuitively, and there are some things that I can figure it out intuitively much faster than other people,
right?
But if I don't know the process of how to learn, like the actual process of how to learn is something that like I needed pointed out to me. And I regale on this all the time. Long ago, like 4 or 5 years ago, I was doing CRL with the Chiefs. We were in a hotel, and I was practicing. I was just doing a double tap practice or custom training, and I was really struggling. And a Chiefs was sitting there watching me, and he actually sat there and he like broke down each like little individual part, and I just never really thought about it like that.
Yeah.
He's like, well, you need to think about like, you need to like watch your car actually hit the ball. Like where are you hitting the ball with your car, right? Well, you're boosting into the ball. You can't you can't do that. Or
right.
Like, where you need to turn ball, you need to have like, this is when you turn ball cam off. This is when you don't turn ball cam off. And that's not something that like my brain was able to learn intuitively. The process of how to do something, knowing like what the end goal should be, and knowing like, well, I should be able to do this and that and get here, but this and that actually breaks down into like 8 more smaller steps that I'm like, it takes a lot more energy for my brain to like to suss out. So
yeah, and
it makes
then
me feel like an idiot sometimes, you know what I mean?
And then, well, have you ever, I mean, for that example specifically, and you could do this, pretend a Rocket League replay is your life. Have you ever sat back and watched your own stuff to try and break it down yourself too? Because
I have, and I think that it depends on what the mechanic is that I'm doing. Like if it includes a couple of mechanics that I'm still a little newer on, like sometimes I'll just watch somebody else do it 1,000 times, and I'll just watch everything that they're doing, and that gives me a better idea of what I should be doing on a minutia scale. But yeah, I don't remember. To
be honest, I don't know how we got here, but I can keep it going forward.
We said this was going to happen.
Yeah, we see inevitability of it. Oh Jesus! Now I lost.
we're totally off base now. I think this time was my fault because I went on 3 separate threads all before I gave you a chance to speak again. So I'm blaming me.
So I started thinking about those things, and
yeah.
Where do we go from here? Yeah, no,
that's great.
It's interesting with I just tried. You know what I tried to do there? I tried to start a sentence and then just see if I'd find my way, and even still, I had no idea where I was going here. So
that's like half my casting.
Just start it and see what.
It used to be. It's not so much anymore.
Yeah,
Not so much
sometimes
anymore,
it
what
works.
used to be.
I was talking to I believe it was Stumpy was saying this, and I think sometimes Spaceman as well. But basically, Stumpy said sometimes he'll just start a sentence and then force himself to finish it, and that's how he says some really wild, creative things.
Some of the best things you say are all on the fly.
Yeah, you just
I think
go.
all the calls I'm most proud of. I actually don't think any of them were pre-planned, and I pre-plan a lot of them. Like I prep a lot of different like one-liners that I think of.
It's not like you're like, okay, the third goal today, I'm saying this. It's you have them ready, but it's like which you fit the shoe.
It's more so like what if this situation happens? Like what would I say in that situation is kind of how I think about it, and then I'll write it down. And I hardly ever use them. I think the process of writing them down helps the intuitive part of my brain, my subconscious, make new ones out of that.
True.
Right.
Yeah.
Like just to get your brain like in the process of thinking about those situations and how you can describe them. So I think that exercise in itself still helps me come up with things on the fly.
Yeah. It's sometimes it's so infuriating to write something and then or have a bit and then just never, this goes with my script writing too, and then just never have a place to say or put it because you're like, I want to, but you also don't want to force it. Like there was one line, season 2, I said it finally. I had been sitting on the line for a while, and it wasn't even that good, but it was just like, I'm like, finally, there's a scenario to use it. It was like, I think it was something like the ball was like bouncing on the goal line and like flip side was trying to score it, and eventually I think they got it, and I said because it was just like a miracle went in. I'm like, there's Marky Duda's like Bon Jovi living on a prayer, and I'm just like but I had been sitting on that for like a half a year waiting for a scenario, right? And it was but you never want to force it ahead of time because it's just stupid because then it just sounds stupid and forced and like you're trying too hard.
Yeah, I mean, to you it might sound forced because you were sitting on it for 6 months, but I wonder how many people pick up on that. I am really curious about that because sometimes I feel like I force things out and then I'll see the reaction and be like, "Oh, that was great." So it's like, okay, well, I mean, I guess my feelings there aren't correct.
I think
which is nice. I love that every time.
I think the break of monotony of Rocket League casting by a phrase that hasn't been said before, a unique phrase, outweighs any awkwardness that it could have carried with it, like or forcedness. People are just like, they just like all of a sudden, wait, what did he just say? Like that amazement is better than, wait, why did he say that? Right. So even if it is,
I think it's like, as long as you don't like you don't make it more than it is, and you just kind of say it and it fits your flow, like it will sound natural. That's
How do you? Well, since we're on the topic of Rocket League casting, how do you do you find it helps, or because I mean we all have a little bit of ego, so hearing compliments is always good. But I've noticed sometimes too many compliments can cause complacency. Do you ever find, because like obviously right now the general consensus is you're one of the top casters in Rocket League of all time, right? Like it's just and I think deservedly so. You know, very passionate, very well spoken. You've been working on your craft for so long. You put the work in, so it's good to hear compliments. Have you found you ever got to a point where you're like, hey, I'm complacent, or do you still feel like you've been working hard? Because I definitely myself had hit a complacency point here and there, some pockets of it.
This is probably not a good thing, but I have never been complacent. I have never felt. I've never felt the like fully. There are moments where I feel what you said, right? That like I'm that guy.
Yeah.
But a lot of times and some of this is me being in my own head, but a big portion of it is me like never wanting to be complacent. Like there's this subconscious drive in me. And I think part of that is a goal that I've always had for myself. And it's not a goal that I think I've learned, or I'm learning that this isn't a goal that I think that I can achieve on my own.
Okay.
Because it's like I've always wanted to be the best at
Mm-hmm.
whatever it was that I did. Like whatever I set my mind to, I wanted to be the best at it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so like with Rocket League casting, like I don't just want to be the best Rocket League caster. I want to be recognized as the best Rocket League
Okay.
caster. And you know, that's not something that is really fully in my control. I can't
Right.
control how people feel, you know, but like it doesn't stop my brain from trying. So like sometimes, you know, whenever the fated you know, favorite caster duo thread comes up,
Yeah.
you know, I like looking because I like seeing. And you know, I'm not like I used to get down on myself
Yeah.
pretty big time with like those types of threads, and like I'd beat myself up to the point where it wasn't healthy, like just because I wasn't being like
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't people's top choices, and like that would like wreck me mentally. But there's no reason for it too, because so many people enjoy my commentary,
Yeah.
and you know, I don't think they deserve like that kind of mentality from me, because like there are so many people out there who tell me all the time how much they love my commentary,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
people who personally reach out to me and tell me that I'm their favorite commentator, and like that should be enough, and it is enough, but it doesn't, you know, that doesn't make the goal go away. Like
Of
I'm
course.
still telling you, man, Jorby Turtle's taking over the world. You know, yeah, Shogun Johnny got us, all right. You guys got us, but Jorby Turtle, we're coming. We're
Good.
coming.
No, it's something that's I we've said this so many to every commentator that's been on here. I think we have a good group for it too, because we're all vocal about how much we want to be the best to each. We don't hide it. We're not secretly saying I want to be the best. We say I want to be the best, but I'm proud that you're the best right now. Like we're happy for each
Yeah.
other
Oh
doing it,
yeah.
but we still want to be that person, and it
I
creates
mean,
a
that's
very good, healthy competitiveness.
absolutely. I love that. I love that we have that, and it's because like it's part of what motivates me. Like
Mm-hmm.
I listen to Shogun, I listen to Stacks. You know, I listen to all of our play-by-play guys, and like every time I hear, I mean, really, it's not just, I don't limit myself to just listening and comparing myself to them. I kind of try to see like where I am, you know, compared to everybody, like play-by-play and color, because we really do both.
Uh-huh.
There we tend towards one like style of role or another, but
Yeah.
like it really just depends on who you're with, right?
Yeah.
um and I think that I always listen to them, I'm like, man, they're so good. I'm like, geez, I got to keep my game up. Like that's what happens to me every time in the green room. I'm listening to any of the commentators.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just like, this is the standard. Like, and if you do slack, like you're
Mm-hmm.
gonna get passed by all of your colleagues.
Mm-hmm.
So like it's a constant effort, even if you feel like you've come a long way and improved. The reality is, if you listen to yourself, there's a lot you can still improve on. I'm talking about myself. Like, you know, every time I listen to myself, there's always something to take
Yeah.
away. There's always something to improve on, whether it's just basic mechanics or making sure that your understanding in a situation is better next time, like all sorts of different stuff like that.
No, it's I think that's generally a common um, trait with our. That's why I think our talent team is so good. Is
They're
that
amazing. Best in
yeah,
esports.
they definitely do keep continue to grow, and it's hard to sometimes see that too, considering how all of our people are grassroots, right? Like we all came from this scene. Well, I mean, obviously we had our scenes before, but none of us was doing this in
Right.
other scenes before this, right? So it was this natural growth makes it feel like, how can we compare ourselves to the Chris Pucketts and stuff, right? Because it's like we haven't been around as long. We're grassroots. We're just Rocket League. But then when you actually look at some of these calls, I've listened to some of these presidents, like listening to Stacks or Wave Punk do these intros is like, holy crap, this sounds so good.
Oh yes,
Right?
I don't have to compete with Wave Punk anymore. Thank goodness. You know, Wave, thanks for becoming a host. You know,
I do.
okay, constantly comparing myself to absolute greatness is just way too difficult for
Yeah,
me.
you
man.
passed them off to me. Now I got to compete with.
Well, you're great too, and that's the thing is like, you know, two types of different styles, and I don't think that I don't think anybody on the team should ever like be down on themselves or think that they're much less than anyone else on the team. I think that everybody brings their own style and their own flavor, and I think they all excel at that. And we're all grinders, man. I think that's my favorite part about this team is every single one of us are grinders. Like even you said you had you had a little
Pockets
bit
of
of time where
complacency.
like
Yeah.
yeah, you were fighting with complacency, but I know you, and I know you're a grinder, and I know that complacency doesn't stay around forever.
I
Um,
I think a lot of it just tends to be the depression. I've managed it a lot more in probably the past 5 years, but it still creeps. It still gets there, and I think, oh,
yeah.
everyone hates me. They pretend to be nice, but they actually don't like me, and then
Oh,
it's very
yeah.
easy to get down and
Too
very
real.
easy to lose motivation or just say, what's the point of motivation? What's the point of grind? Yeah, so I think that's part of what causes the complacency. It's not that I think I'm good. It's that I think I'm nowhere near good enough to be doing it that the motivation gets lost sometimes.
I have felt that too. Like, you know,
Imposter syndrome.
in those moments, you know, because you're not 100% mentally sound all the time. So
Uh-huh.
sometimes you hear another commentator and you're like, man, that is really good. I have not been that good in like months. Like
Mm-hmm.
I am, and like instead of the answer being the motivation that I'm that like normally is the response, sometimes it is an unhealthy response and just turns into like self shame and just into shaming yourself
Mm-hmm.
for really nothing. Uh, yeah, it's like sometimes I'd take uh, the absence of something as a condemnation of
Mm-hmm.
me. Like if people
Mm-hmm.
weren't saying my name as like their favorite or they mentioned somebody else, then that means that
Yeah.
I'm not doing something to make you like to make me your favorite, which is that's not an accurate way to look at
Not
it
at
at
all.
all. And that's just your brain trying to shame you into like into just feeling bad about yourself, and it's sometimes it's a real struggle, especially in this industry. I mean, the with commentary, it's competitive. Commentary is
Yeah.
extremely competitive, and like that you can get caught in the rat race if you're not careful, like all in your own head too. Like
Yeah.
nobody, it could be like no one else is doing anything to like force this on you. You could just be doing it to yourself, and to me that's the hardest part, is like knowing that it just is
You
yourself
can
that
bring yourself
is.
down.
Yeah,
It's
because like if you do bet on yourself and you're wrong, and it turns out those people like didn't think of you the way that you thought they did, then like your shame mechanism to defend yourself like was like feels like it was actually like it corrects. So like this
mm-hmm.
the unknowingness of like what the reality is scary.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
Yeah. It's cool to be able to reflect on yourself, but then to be able to not go too deep is
right.
and to bring yourself back out of that and think about someone else's like to think about it from someone else's perspective, to think about it, okay, what are their actual thoughts and perceptions of me, which is hard to do. So like to look at yourself from someone else's perspective is very, very difficult at times. I can put myself into your shoes right now and try to think so many things. One thing could be like you being actually interested and be like, okay, I have something to say. This is a good topic, great conversation. Or it could be, I could put myself in your shoes, and right now your face is saying, wow, is Leaf trying to sound like he's smart and profound again? Right? Like it.
That is like I got so many voices in my head, and they're the voices of everybody that I know. And
Yeah.
it's this construct you build of the people around you, and it's like it's just yourself attacking yourself. Like I just use their voices, I use your voice, like you use my voice to shame yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Even though and so it's catching that assumption. It's like wait, you're talking to yourself. It's not them talking to you. They've never made you feel that way. They've never said those things to
Mm-hmm.
you. So it's not fair. It's not fair to put that on other people,
Right.
but it can be hard because the feeling is so real.
Mm-hmm.
It's so raw, and like that to me is the hard part, is like letting that feeling run its course and go, and then being able to think
Mm-hmm.
clearly from there. Like that's the hard part of it, is
Yeah.
is how real it feels.
I had to. I brought it up a few times too, but it's topicals. I had to, and this is actually probably I think a tipping point that changed my control over how shameful I'd feel, like how inwardly I kept falling and looking, was season 1 with my depression was the worst ever. I felt like quitting, but I pushed through it. I said, no, that's just because people don't actually hate me. They're just criticizing me. And it's very valid criticism because I'm new to this. I don't know what I'm doing. I have to just look at the actual, okay, what are the actual key points to take away? How can I grow from this? People don't hate me as a person. And I had to tell myself that, and I pushed through it, and I stuck around, which means obviously they didn't hate me. Otherwise I wouldn't be here right now. I would have kicked off the broadcast. And that action, and then what happened afterwards, like the result of it, proved to me, okay, a lot of this is in my head, and I can get through this. I can create a different reality to other people than what my brain is saying the reality is.
I didn't have the most healthy way of dealing. Well, maybe. No, actually, I'm going to argue I did have a healthy way of approaching this. I don't think that. So, like, you know, I've dealt with a lot of criticism, and yeah, I love getting on Reddit and reading opinions about me. Like back in the day, though, I remember I was always frustrated just because people would just, you know, people are just venting. People go onto the subreddit. That's a place for fans. It's a place for fans to vent and give their opinions. Like there's nothing wrong with that. Like you can spout your opinions all you want. It's my responsibility to manage my own emotions and manage my reaction to the things that you say. But one thing I used to do, and I don't really do it anymore, but like I would engage with those people sometimes because they wouldn't give me any like real feedback, and I had a genuine desire.
I engage all the time.
Yeah, I mean, I know. I see some of y'all. Some of y'all are real chatters in Reddit these days. Sometimes I do. It depends how I'm feeling. But like I would just ask people, is like, I'm sorry that you know you didn't like what you heard. Like, can you like expound on it and tell me what you didn't like?
Yeah.
And I'd always get two types of responses. I get people either backtracking immediately.
That's
and
a big
being
one.
like, oh, I don't have like actually any problem with you or anything. And like, again, leading to people, good fans going to talk and just spout their opinions and how they're feeling.
And sometimes it can just come down to personal preference. They just don't like your voice, and that's fine.
Yeah, which is totally valid. I think just being told that is the release for me. Not knowing why you don't like me is the problem that I always have. But if your answer is like, I just prefer this style of commentary, like, then I'm very easily able to let it go once I know. But it's the unknowing that I can't let go. And sometimes I get really good feedback. Like some people give really good feedback.
Don't tell them that. Now they're gonna think they're
no. No, what I was gonna say is like I don't think like the content of the feedback itself a lot of times is very surface level, and people I don't think are used to giving like feedback on commentary.
Right.
They're just telling you how it makes them feel.
Of course.
And one thing I felt like I was good at doing is interpreting, okay, you feel this way. Yeah, you know, I think like, and then I go and listen back to the cast and I'm like, yeah, you know, I think this person's onto something a little bit. But like it's still me identifying the issue.
Right. Yeah.
And there's definitely an unhealthy way to approach, I think, engaging with fans in that way. But I think a lot of us have people who do engage with the subreddit or with fans on that level. I think most of us have been, at least I haven't seen anybody get like a certain way with people. No. But like I've never done that. And like I've always strove to like understand why people feel like the way they do, because I just want them to like me, right? It comes from a desire of me wanting to entertain you. I don't want anyone to like see me on camera and then hit the mute button, because you're not just like hitting the mute button is a complete failure to me, because if you hit the mute button, you're not just turning yourself off from the commentary, you're turning yourself off from the ambiance and the atmosphere of the broadcast. Right. And like I'm personally responsible for that. And so like I've made your experience worse. And so like it's always been my goal, one of my goals, to be like, just make sure nobody feels the need to hit mute on you. Because I think people will listen to commentators they don't prefer, as long as they don't feel like they're grading on them, you know?
Yeah, no, it's I think it's a good point you made of like, it's just, we're just there to create atmosphere. And now I suppose there inevitably will be people though that hit mute because they're like, there's something about the frequency of this voice that causes pain to me and I can't listen to it. And that's just something you
Right.
have
Or they're
to,
always yelling and like, I can't do this. And,
yeah.
but it's very real, you know, if you've ever listened to somebody who's just constantly yelling
That's a lot.
at all times. And I did this
draining.
very early on in my career.
Yeah.
Like it is like, and you go back and listen to it and like, I want to hit mute. Like there were times, like there were legitimately times back in 2016, 2017 that I listened back to some of my casts and I physically couldn't do it. I'm like, I literally went like this. I remember it was NBC Universal Open and I was listening back to a particular cast where I was just really high energy. I think I drank like a monster before that cast. That was stupid. But I literally went like this. I went, and like I was like, okay, that is we need to settle down a little bit, Jorbs.
Part of it, you know what's the worst is I've also had shows I've done where the mixing was bad. So me doing my normal thing sounded worse because all of a sudden I would peak or I was too quiet. The bass was turned up too loud and I sounded muffled. Like, so that always scares me too. I'm like, what? So sometimes when I'm on desk, what I'll actually do is I'll end up, I'll do my segment or whatever, and I'll have the broadcast up, and then someone else starts talking. I'll quickly unmute the broadcast, hear how I was sounding. I've actually caught bad audio and been able to, on the spot, tell an audio person, hey, by the way, my mic's peaking or something on stream, because I'll have that moment to listen to it, because I'm always scared that when I'm not working within the constraints that an audio engineer has given me.
I had when Rival Series first began, the first season was really funny because our audio guy was always telling me during cast, be like, Jorby, we need you to monitor your volume. It became a meme for like 3 Rival Series. Stacks would say it any chance he got. Be like, Jorby, I need you to monitor your volume levels, please. And I'm like, okay, all right, Stacks. Thanks, buddy.
That's absolutely wonderful.
It still comes up every now and again, you know. But yeah,
that's wonderful. Okay, so I have because at the very beginning I talked about or somewhere it was brought up. But I don't know where I'm going. So I have a bunch of topics here. Which one would you like to talk about real quick? Because there's a few things I've always just wanted to talk about with you. So how do you feel about you've been keeping up with fusion technology?
Yeah.
Where do you feel we're at? Do you think that 10-year timeline is actually a 10-year timeline now, or is it going to be in 10 years from now, 10 years out from there?
I mean, I do think the timeline's a little shorter. There are private companies making like working towards commercial fusion reactors. Mm-hmm. So I think you've exited the research. It's just 20 years away stage to maybe something a little closer to what you're saying. Maybe a little closer to like 2035. We'll see we'll probably see a commercial fusion reactor hit some grid in some capacity by 2030. Like they've already hit, like multiple research teams have already hit ignition a couple of times. Yep. Like there was one, now this is unverified because it's a private company and they aren't sharing their all of their processes, but they claim, and through the things that they shared, that they had a greater output than they did energy input.
Is this the I forget what it was called. It was basically they have two ends that forces through a small middle.
Yeah. They basically they compress the plasma into like a little ball, like an infinity stone. Because it's or at least the infographic they had for it, it's just like glowing. And they turn on like the magnetic fields, like all within like microns of each other. To slap them together. It's a really cool concept, the way they explained it is really cool. And the videos about the machine, I can't remember what the company's called, but if you I'd have to like look it up to know what it's called. I don't want to lead people.
Yeah.
Well, no, you know what? Just Google where are we at in nuclear fusion. Have fun in that rabbit hole. It's a lot.
It is fun. It is interesting though. Because it does feel actually attainable now. Like it feels like it's so much closer. And I feel like all of these technologies in general. What's difficult about saying the word AI now is people just instantly think about like LLMs, right? Like they just go to
that's the hot one, right?
But the AIs are just that they're all. It's not. That's not just what AI is. But I feel like AI is helping advance so much. Biomed specifically is incredible how accurate some of these models are, like spotting out like cancers in a lung or something. They're at like 90+% accuracy, where doctors are at like 86 or something. Like it's insane now. But I feel like that's going to help with calculations, especially quantum computing, doing calculations to figure out how things like fusion are going to work. I feel like it's actually within reach. Like, again, we're going to sound like someone in the 80s saying that we feel like it's in reach, but it feels like it's genuinely in reach now.
No, well, no. I mean, it's already kind of made a wave with like DeepMind. You talk about like biology? In 18 months, it cataloged, I think 99%, if not 100. I think it actually got I think it got 100% of every protein like that is in existence.
Wow.
Like,
so like, yeah. I remember seeing
that. The scale of this is insane because there are hundreds of thousands of proteins and we haven't seen them all. And learning about like protein structures and what a valid protein structure is, like an AI has like cracked it and has solved it. It is a massive jump for biology to have that. Because from that, when you have every protein that can exist, when you have them all cataloged, now you can run that same AI and like put somebody's anatomy sheet up next to it and give them the list of conditions and be like, is there a way to combine these to create a medicine specifically for this person with like this specific condition that we're trying to target? And like they're working to create medicine that is literally customized to the user, which is wild. Like that kind of stuff is insane. There are so many different areas, like you were saying, like AI has already been quietly doing so much work to help, like, because a lot of these problems are just the mass of information and data that you have to sift through and combine. And I mean, for a human effort, that's gonna this same process would have taken us hundreds of years.
Yeah, you just can't.
Like, and it did it in a year and a half. Like, it is crazy.
Yeah, so this brings up an interesting discussion about just like the singularity, like the technological singularity. For anybody listening that might not know, it's a point where like I guess I've heard a couple definitions of it, but I don't know what your definition of it is, Drobs. But the one definition is the point where you've achieved everything. Another is just that a point where technology is so advanced so much that you can't pull it back. It just keeps going. And if you use that's what I say. If you use that definition, I feel like we're already at that point because the way we will interact with each other through the internet now, because of these generative AIs, is forever changed. You just can't, and through social media.
Did you see the Minecraft bot that NVIDIA made?
I didn't watch that. I didn't watch that. I did hear of it, but I didn't watch it yet.
You need to watch that. It's insane. They used a large language model to like there was the auto GPT thing, right? Which is like they made a recursive function through prompts so that it runs on its own.
Auto GPT,
yeah. They use a similar concept for the Minecraft bot. And like it just learns the game on its own, and it just makes stuff. It's crazy. Like, I think I talked to you about it before. I'm sorry, did I interrupt your point? I think
no. This is the point. Keep going.
Okay, yeah. No, I remember I tweeted this out when I was reading about it like a couple months back. But I was saying that the advent of large language models could like revolutionize things like massive multiplayer games. Because like a big
we talked about this on Twitter, I think.
Did we have the interaction? Was it me, you, and me?
It
would be
it was Twitter. We had this interaction on Twitter.
Yeah. Like to me, it's so cool like I was what inspired it was, and y'all should look this up at home. Seriously, Google the RuneScape ChatGPT bot, because that's what I was like extrapolating off of, where there was like the goal of the video was to find out if regular players could distinguish that it was a bot, because this bot, yeah, this is RuneScape, because you talk in the same area as the bot, and it would respond to you, and it could even do things like it could do very basic things like follow you if you asked it to, and like right there at that moment my brain went off in like 100 different directions. Like imagine just having like, instead of, you know how many wiki games are out there, you know how many developers like rely on wikis to divulge all of their information about your game, and like it's never really about or it's never really like in the game or in lore, or like a part of the lore of the world itself to give you the information. It's like, what if you had all the information in your game, in your MMO, and then you also had a bunch, just imagine thousands of these bots all doing their own thing. They're online all the time and they're doing stuff. They're even interacting with each other. They talk to each other. I think the video actually does this at one point too. I think he has two bots talk to each other, and like with things like AutoGPT. So AutoGPT, if you're not familiar with that, very simply, it can create its own goals and its own tasks, and then set out to complete those tasks. So you could do that and have these AI in an MMO, and people could just go up and be like, hey, I'm looking for like this quest. And then they'll be like, oh yeah, that's over here, like lore specific and everything. They'll talk to you like they're a character in the game. Or maybe you want them to sound like a player. Maybe you want them to like be like a player. And you'd be like, I need some help with this quest. Imagine just being able to grab a random NP, like a random bot, and be like, I need help with this quest. And it will do that. It won't only do that, but it will give you advice. Like it will give you conversational advice on the things that, like anything you ask it about the game. Like the potential for it is absolutely insane with the right model and with the right fine tuning. Like there's so much potential with it. And it's not just the RuneScape one. Like there was if you're familiar with Mountain Blade, Bannerlord, someone created a mod for with ChatGPT and created characters with backstories, and then you could ask that character questions about their backstory, and it would continue the conversation, and they would expand on it. The backstory info is just like a lesser, like a paragraph level prompt, but then the like the character itself can collect its own memories, and it can like navigate and evolve its backstory, so it gives you like this very natural feeling, very real feeling thing. And like normal players, I'm gonna be honest with you, normal players suck in MMOs. They don't like to talk to you. If you don't have the right build, they don't want to play with you. If you're not a specific class, good luck finding any group.
I'll be honest.
But like if you remove the human element, from the equation and you replace it with bots, they'll be more fun to play with than actual humans.
I actually don't play MMOs to play with other people. I play them as single players.
You're part of the problem, man. You are part of the problem.
No, it's because I don't.
And you want
to
play active creation. You are not going to be a solo boy.
But I don't care about PvP. I don't care. Like I just like PvE, and I like enjoying the story of the.
But you can't. You play Star Citizen though. You play with people.
But that's different because that's not a story. Well, there is lore in it, but its value comes from the interactions of other players.
Okay, so you do like sandbox MMOs, but when you play a theme park MMO, you don't want to talk.
Yeah, my problem with games like WoW or I mean, all of them, Elder Scrolls, there's no value added in my opinion in playing with other players.
Yeah,
I don't gain anything extra from playing with them. I'll just play with a friend, or I'll just play by myself, and I still get all the lore. I still get to play my character, and because I find a lot of times when you play with other players, it turns into a game of min-max, and that just takes the whole fun out of it. Of like, oh well, I got to press this button at this time and at this thing, and that's why I can never get into WoW. And the New World, I still play that sometimes, but I play it just to go and cut down some trees and live in the environment. That's what games like I have. If you are watching the video of this podcast right now, you'll see in the background I have Skyrim with they put ChatGPT into Lydia so she can tell her story and stuff. Now so our discussion on Twitter, what had happened now that you've got your love for the potential of this out, is
I got it all out.
Yeah, I was bringing up the thing for me a lot of times is the way a line is delivered. A small slight pause from an actor's performance can change the meaning of this character and add to that character's depth. Whereas I don't know that an LLM can understand that. Well, it can't understand that, and how it can deliver the lines and be lore accurate, but it can't deliver a performance that is meaningful to a character's depth and an atmosphere that I'm in, right? Because if I walk up and there's like a crazy thing just happened and I walk up to an AI and that AI isn't delivering its line all scared like because of the event just happened, it's just saying the next thing, that takes me out of that moment. And I do feel like it's a bit more of a complicated process than just training the model on
Of course,
the
no
thing, right? Like it still almost needs to be fine-tuned.
No, yeah, it absolutely. My dream is imagining it is fine tuned and it would combine multiple things, right? So like the tone specific conversation, what you're talking about, is something that I mean they're also working on in the AI space. And I don't think it's like I don't even think you would need an AI specifically for like the voice part of it. You just need an algorithm that is able to detect like what's the urgent, like what urgency level are we at, and then like depending on your urgency level that would affect your tone specifically for like fear or something like that. And like because you can already tune models in a very light way for like deepfaked audio to do that sort of thing. I think the account that does the president deepfake voices of like Joe Biden, Donald Trump playing video games together, and Barack Obama. I think those use the program where it's like you can kind of change the tone a little bit. It's not perfect. It's still obviously very early stages, but like the tools are all there. I just think it comes down to like what you're talking about is like, how do you make that work in a video game without it feeling jarring? Like that's going to be the big challenge, but I don't think it's unsolvable. And I don't think it's something that's going to like delay a reality of it, like for much longer, because a lot of the AI stuff is kind of progressing at the same rate in each of its like specific subtypes, you know.
I think my two iterations I could see it happening is one, I think absolutely a design could be or a game could be designed around having these models and these NPCs in the game, and I think behaviors can already, like, actually to bring it back to Star Citizen is they're already have the groundwork for it built in. Of AIs having personalities, having routines, having, okay, this AI might take a fight head on because its character model says it has less fear. So it might approach a battle.
Simpler rules. Yeah. So it gets more, you get more emergent, like, and real reactions from them, right?
Right. Yeah. And I there is a world I think you can build with this, but I don't think it's everything. So I would also think it'd be cool if in a game like Skyrim you had one person that was an LLM, was based off a model that then became a companion or a guide and could give you information about the world around you.
That would be so cool. I would love that. I'd love to have a little companion and be like, hey, so like what is there to do in this town? Like, or like, hey, what are the important things I should be looking out for? Like things that you might miss if you aren't like watching other people play the game, or like you need to have a wiki up, like you need to know like kind of what to search for, but like having a companion when you walk into a certain area and be like, hey, why don't you ask me about this?
And it doesn't have to be like,
you know what I mean?
Two-hand. It can just be, hey, what can I do here? And you can have the companion be only have a certain amount of information. Says, hey, I heard a rumor that there was a warrior staying at the inn you might want to check out. It's not like, but there might be 20 other secrets it doesn't tell you about, but that could lead you on that path.
Maybe you could see a shift in like game design that way, where it goes back to like that the Daggerfall Morrowind style.
I would love that.
You have to like instead of reading and having to deduce where to go, right? You have this companion who's talking to you. Right. Feels a lot more natural. So you're in a town and he's like, yeah, there was a rumor that such and such was at this inn. And like, I should be able to ask it rather than just trying to figure it out on my own. I'm like, cool, where is this inn? And he'd be like, cool, follow me. Let's go. Yeah. Like, and then he'll take you there. And like, that's such a natural way of leading players to like your goals, and like extremely immersive. I love that idea.
Well, adding to the theory craft, you could also make the AI to give it personality. Again, say, I think it's northeast of here from what I last had heard, and you guys go northeast, but it takes you through a dangerous route and you get jumped, and all of a sudden you're on a different route. Like you could have it so that this thing isn't just a know-it-all, here's everything. It can get things wrong, which creates, I think, adventure, in my opinion.
Yeah. Sorry, the video was doing jump cuts.
Oh,
there.
yeah. That's
the face was cracking me up.
But yeah, I think I think just throwing, again, I think throwing AI and LLMs into a game that, like Skyrim playing in the background here, is not a solution. I think it's interesting. I think it's a cool gimmick for the time being, but I don't think it creates anything. I won't say it doesn't create art, because in its own way it is its own art piece, but it doesn't create something profound, in my opinion. I think the piece has to be designed with that LLM or with that AI model in mind before the project even begins, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like with all games, right? That's not something like you tack it on and it's going to look tacked on. It's something you have to consider when you're designing the game. But I think that the potential for video games, because I think one criticism that I believe you and I share, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that you were just telling me before we started this show that some games have really been grinding on you, and because it's just a task list, list generator, go and do this thing to get your dopamine and leave. But there's no real like immersion. The game's not trying to immerse you in the game. I don't
feel in the world anymore. Yeah.
It's just trying to keep you in the game.
Right.
And I feel like you can accomplish that goal and get immersion with design like this, because you remove the exorbitant amount of writing that you would need to do to accomplish something like that, thanks to AI, and not in the form that large language models have it now, but maybe in some sort of future form. And one thing that I thought was a cool thing, and I hope that this is the direction that we go, because obviously there's a lot of problems around AI and the data that it trains on,
right?
Or at least with like large language models specifically, there isn't as much hubbub about it. There is some things about it taking research papers that it shouldn't have and things like that. But I really hope what the direction is, because I think there's a lot of potential here. As a voice actor, like imagine being able to like make a portfolio of sounds, and then you can sell. Did we talk about this? Okay, yeah, you could like sell that portfolio of sounds to a developer, and then they can use like that in the game for that game, right? And then that way, you like for the voice actor, you have a way of making money with your likeness, with actually less work on your end, because you don't have to record 100,000 lines. You don't have to do any of that. And for a developer, you don't have to write 100,000 lines of dialogue. You can refine it, and like the refinement process has become is starting to become a lot easier. And I'm not saying that people should just take AI generated poop and just like put it in their thing. I'm not saying that at all. I think that it's a great tool it's a great initial draft tool for you to work with and for you to expand on and make it your own, right? But it just quickens that process. I just want to clarify my stance on that. I know some people very passionate about that.
I was going to bring up a couple points on that, because one, imagine as a voice actor, I could be doing a project, and then another project comes to me and says, "Hey, we'll pay you this." It's not you have a separate day rate for your AI voice, and you say, "Hey, can we pay for your voice for this game?
This many hours of audio or something like that."
And then it's cheaper for them. They still get your voice, your likeness. Now, one of my problems to dive into this topic is would then be performance. Is again, back to what I said before, that small subtle pause, that change in tone of a line. What if a direct you're putting it in, it's going, and then whoever's in charge of dialogue is like, "I don't like the way that was delivered." How do you change that? Maybe the models will get, you can just say, "Hey, say this more excitedly, say this in this way." But
You could be like add a pause in between these two things. Like you could get that. Maybe you could get that granular with it.
I do feel like that just like now
kind of
that
defeats the
process
purpose a
is
little
almost harder and then just
Yeah,
telling
yeah,
an
yeah.
actor, hey, can you do, but it also down to the actor. What if I have a performance that goes out there and this game gets reviewed and one of the critiques is, oh, the voice acting, the performances were terrible. That now looks bad on me, even though I didn't technically even do the performance, right? Like it'd be like,
I feel like that would depend on the context though, because I mean, plenty of voice actors do the work, and plenty of people like don't like it, right?
uh-huh.
And you just kind of like take your licks and move on. I guess the difference there is on your next performance, if you didn't think you performed well, then you can like improve on it. But
Yeah.
I think the same way you could like look at your portfolio and be like, okay, let's change how I deliver some of these, or let's change this, or let's change that. Because I think that that criticism isn't really alien to the current world and the current way things are done. And I think it's contextual. It's like, was it an objectively bad performance, or do people just not like it? Like, because people not liking
I'm
it
like,
doesn't mean that doesn't mean that the performance is the AI's fault in particular, right? That's a little tricky though. That's tricky.
yeah, because it could be again the tonal thing that you have a scenario where an important character just died, and now the next lines after feel there are subtle things that actors do to make that performance feel heartfelt. And you can say it in a million ways, but it's that emotion that gets attached to it that's really hard to have an LLM or a language model do, a voice synthesizer do, that maybe can make that scene really tone deaf. And now what if you as an actor put yourself out there, 20 projects came to you at this, around the same time, they all start to release and they all continually suck year after year. But these are things you agreed to years before, when the development started. And now all of a sudden your name is attached to 20 terrible performances. Sure, your actual performance is great, but you have this track record of, Leaf's name. We don't
like that one,
right? So it's like your name is attached to a bunch of out of touch, emotionless performances. Even though we know it's a model, we know that you're down for this, right? And so I can
tricky.
Very well see voice actors being very resistant. As great as it sounds to bring in more money, thinking about it, I really wonder if that you're going to see a lot of resistance from voice actors.
Oh, I mean, no, I think you're definitely going to get. I think the resistance that you're seeing now is the resistance you're going to see in every field, and rightfully so, because I think that, in this like hypothetical world that we're talking about, I think that means less voice actors are getting gigs.
Yeah.
Because now it's easier to ping the voice actor you actually want, because his schedule's way more free, because he doesn't have to record like 50,000 lines for this big game. Instead, it's just like, yeah, here you go. And I think you'd see less voice actors getting work that way. And I think that is, at least it's my chief concern about AI. Obviously, some people are going to make out, and some people are going to get ahead in the race, but it's foolish to think that it's not going to have an adverse impact on like labor, especially like, everyone thought, we talked about this before, we talked about AI a lot. But like everyone thought, I thought 5 years ago that, robots were coming for blue collar first. It turns out the trades are very resistive to automation, very difficult. White collar though, real easy. A lot of, so it's a crazy world that, we're entering. And I've been very frequently saying that it both excites and terrifies me, because I see the people that have control of these things, and a lot of people who don't care about the consequences, or just like to, close their ears and pretend that there aren't consequences to this, because there are just AI truthers out there that are like, it's only good for society, and not, understanding the framework that we live in. Like it's terrifying, because it might end up being used to the detriment of a lot of people.
Yeah. Well,
and especially in work like this,
I wonder, because it feels like the inevitability of any civilization, in my opinion, is that the evolution is machines, right? Like
yes.
I wonder if there's a world where that coexists, and as long as there even exists any level of machine cohabitating any civilization, organic civilization, is you will always have that fear amongst that organic civilization of being gone, being left for moot because you're no longer relevant, right? So it feels like the resistance that we feel really is just a survival instinct kind of kicking in. But if you think about it logically, maybe it's better that we're gone, right? Maybe better machines take over. Is it? I don't know. What is I mean, it all depends on what your value of like, what should the universe produce? But I really think the universe should just produce whatever naturally comes next.
I mean, yeah, the universe is doing the thing it's doing, right?
Right. Yeah.
It's like, not getting too philosophical, although I say that and it's probably going to get philosophical.
Don't try not to go anywhere. Just go where you go.
No, yeah. I think, like, because I've thought a lot about this, about like people saying like, oh, we're not doing what like nature intended, or like this is not like the natural order of things. And I was like, well, yes, it is. This is the natural order. Things happen.
If it's happening,
the universe,
then it's natural.
Yeah, if it's happening, then the natural order demands that it's happening.
Yep.
And so I think like you said, like technology for any civilization that makes it far enough is an inevitability. Why? Hard to say. I think that's a different type of question and its own rabbit hole. Yeah, I mean, there's tons out there, right? There's like my thing that I think holds us back from that, like not having the technology destroy ourselves, is I think that humanity needs to accept its collective existence. I think that is something that is really hard because we're still extremely tribal. We are like, we went from very primitive, basically no like global changing technology
instantly
to globally change. Like we've only had the internet for 30 years, and social media has only been around for like 15 years, and we are just figuring out how to navigate. We don't know how to navigate. Everyone's got a different idea on how we should navigate it, but like we're babies. We're babies in a giant ocean that we do not understand. Some people think they understand it better than others, but the reality is the internet not that long ago was a giant wild west, because all of a sudden you could communicate with somebody like across the pond, the whole way over in Russia instantly, and like nobody had ever been able to do something like that before, and like we're just now understanding the ramifications of that.
Well, it's just all these cultures assimilating, right? Like it's just
I mean, or some cultures shutting themselves off, right? Like China, who has been increasingly trying to separate their digital presence from the rest of the world, and I think that is harmful to advancing.
Right.
I think the next step in the great filters, it's one that's kind of mentioned but not actually said, is that I do think that at some point humans need to acknowledge the collective existence of humanity, because as societies, things that the US does affects people who have nothing to do with the US in other countries, and vice versa in so many other countries, like even something as simple as pollution or mass production. These adversely affect people that have nothing to do with anybody, and nobody wants to acknowledge it or do any of that. Not to get like too far into that, my point is that we do not accept the collective existence of humanity. We only accept the collective existence of ourselves, our individual selves, and maybe the small group around us. We are still monkeys in that sense, and we will. I don't think we will progress. I don't think we'll solve the AI problem and properly enter a symbiosis with it until humanity enters a symbiosis with itself. But that's when we can become interstellar.
That won't happen until our current forms evolve, right? Like there are too many variations when it comes to empathy levels, intelligence levels, when it comes to your just so many things, the brain, just how it perceives the world, tribalism, again, just primitive instincts. There's just how we educate the people and the things they learn about is always going to change. I mean, even down to like government leadership and culture of one. Let's look at one extreme to the other. Let's look at the US to China, for instance. There's something to be, I mean, if you look at a general populace as a general populace, not individuals, you can see that they are going to need guidance, and maybe there's merit to what China's doing. But then you also look at individual freedoms and say, no, that's clearly not correct, right? But I can understand how people sit on either side of those fences. And until you find a way for people to understand how there's merit in every philosophy, then you won't have that complete collective thought of, let's think about us as a whole, right? Like, I feel like the only way to do that is to somehow, I feel like the inevitability of a successful species is some sort of collective consciousness, hive mind, the ability to actually feel what you're feeling. I want to know exactly why and how you think, Jorby, and I want to experience your consciousness from your perspective. And until we can do that, I don't think we have a successful collective.
I don't even think you would need the conscious experience of somebody else. Like, you would just need the emotion. Like, if you could feel the emotion, like physically feel the emotion that person is feeling, that's going to have like a greater impact on you than anything else. And I think those things are probably going to be possible in the nearer, like, this sounds really sci-fi what we're talking about, but the reality is, like, we already have very infant brain machine interfaces.
Yeah.
And it's not, we already know that we can manipulate the brain into different states using different methods. Music, sound is a very popular one to use. And there was a study done, and I don't remember who it was by, but they did a study about your brain frequencies in groups, and everyone joins a group. Everyone's on slightly different frequencies, but what happens is that eventually everyone in the group syncs up. And they found that this also happens online in calls under the right conditions. So like, just being in a call and not actually experience, like, you need multiple senses engaged in order to enter almost like a group flow state, where like everybody's interacting the same way and people are oscillating at the same frequency. And I don't know, I feel like there's something to that. And then, like, neuroscientists also talk about,
so Jorby hates work from home workers.
Oh man, I know for me personally, I've always worked better in a studio / LAN environment, you know, being around other people. No, yeah, no, I mean, but like, I think there's something to that. And you know, to go beyond the science of it, like, if the brain is able to communicate with each other like that, even if it's indirect communication, then like, we're missing something. Like, there's something that there's something going on here between brains that, like, you know how radio waves, we can't see them, we can't feel them, we can't do any of that, but we can interact with them to carry information. I think the same is true for brain waves and frequencies. Like, waves in general, at the basic physics level, like, if you've ever studied physics, all frequencies on the electromagnetic spectrum and beyond all carry information. And so, like, what type of information can we read that information? It is like, and like, they're working on a thing where they're telling people, okay, here's an image of a thing, like a red truck in front of a building or something like that. And so they in one of these brain machine interfaces, they're able to get an image from, like, they tell you to think about it, and they're like, recreate the image in your brain. And I'm serious, look this up. Wow. This is a real thing. And the survey, or not the survey, but the participants all had slightly different, and sometimes a little and sometimes a lot of variation in the image that they present in their head. Like, we talk about perspective being different for everybody, right? Like, physically, it's actually a thing. And I mean, in physics, we have things like relativity to tell us that perspective is a real physical phenomena. There's just so many things we just don't understand about existence itself. Like, and all of those things just have me wondering, it's like, is it possible to get to that point of telepathy where I could, like, you and I, we put our headphones on, our future 100 years from now brain machine interfaces, and just through sitting here, like, our headphones are transmitting information through the internet, and they are inducing the sense of feeling that I'm having in you. And now you know how I'm feeling. Like, it's an impression of like an image, you know, like, there are some fantasy or sci-fi books that do this with telepathy, like, and they describe the telepathy as like an impression of something. In Wheel of Time, in the books, not the show, there is a character who can shapeshift into a wolf, And how wolves communicate is they communicate through feelings and through emotion, but those emotions are like an impression of a concept, something that couldn't be described in a couple of words, but instead is like instantaneous, like an instantaneous understanding of like the context and everything. Now imagine humans being able to communicate like that and being able to send the impression of a concept to somebody about any of the things that we deal with today.
Right.
Like that would be a game changer.
Well, yeah, I mean,
for humanity, you know what I mean? And maybe puts us on that path to the collective, to the collective consciousness or the collective acceptance of humanity's existence.
Yeah. The language is just one step in communicating. All language is for the what's in here to go in there, to that one over there, right? You know, from this brain to that brain. You skip the middleman of language and just be able to send my perception of reality, what I'm feeling, what I'm thinking, directly to your brain. It's way more efficient. It's way more effective. I agree in communicating how I'm perceiving this situation right now. Because when it comes to a collective conscious, obviously there'll be resistance to that. Are people going to want to all of a sudden all be one person? I also think there's a problem with that, because now our civilization only sees things from one perspective. It's the perspective of that conscious. But it is, because if we're all one conscious, we see it from that one perspective.
We're a collection of consciousnesses. There's a difference there.
Not if we're all always connected. Now, I wonder if it's a better solution to have a central governing hive mind that makes decisions for humanity, that we all kind of dump our experiences into, then we disconnect, go back to living our world, and then go back to it. So that way our unique perspectives get to exist in their own world, their own vacuum, my brain here by itself. But then I get to go to the central decision maker and say, here's my perspective on everything. Take it in. Now make your decision based on the collective realities that everyone has. But I think then separating again allows new ideas, new creative thoughts to form, because they're being done separately and in their own perspectives. That to me seems like it might be a better solution.
Kind of back to what you were talking about between like the culture difference, the culture extremes between the US and China, right? Extreme or really forced collectivism is one, and then hyper individualism on another. And like the extreme of anything is never the answer.
Right.
The answer is always somewhere in the middle. And I think that I like my dream state, my utopia is a acknowledgement of the individual, and acknowledging that like I am an individual meat sack, but then also being like, I'm also not the only thing that matters, or I'm not the like, just because I exist doesn't mean that I am my greatest priority. Like, and I think there's a balance there. It's like where you're not always your greatest priority. Sometimes you are, depending on the situation, but other times you think more of the collective. I think it's an alien way to view humanity. It's not something that I think we're going to see in our lifetimes. I think that is probably, it's going to take generations of living in technology.
Right.
Like Gen Alpha are the first one, right? Gen Z are kind of like half in, half out. We were there at the birth of like the internet and everything. So we grew with it.
We saw a bit
over
of
time.
Yeah, we were always, most of our lives were in it, but we saw a bit of the before.
Right. Yeah. We know what the before was, because everybody who was older than us told us about the before and taught us about the before, because they didn't know that the before was going to change as much as it did when the internet hit. And I think that for like I don't know why we're calling them Gen Alpha. You figure they did just get rid of that meme. But like for those kids who are like under 10 years old right now, they only ever know the Google Pixel. Like that's their baseline of technology.
Right.
Like their baseline of technology is this hyper connected world where everybody's able to talk to each other and they don't know anything else. And so I think that's going to change your perspective and your philosophy about life. And what is going to be their philosophy? How will they look at life in a world where that has always been connected to, like, for them? Like, to me, that fascinates me. And I think it's going, like, they might be the eldest generation of the people who kind of sort of slowly moved our way towards that balance of individualism and collectivism, right? And I think that the group of people to figure out where that balance is are the group of people that are going to turn us into the next type of civilization.
Yeah, it was fun. Is during this, I was more and more I appreciate, because you brought up Wheel of Time, so I started thinking of Brandon Sanderson.
Yeah.
And I started because I'm about to read Hero of Ages. So I've done Mistborn and Well of Ascension. And it was fun with Well of Ascension. I didn't realize how much comparison of these, political systems we were just talking about would be in there. Of the idea of the choice must always be in the hands of the people through the parliament, democracy. But then sometimes it's like, okay, maybe a king that we know knows better should take control, but also that feels like it violates the philosophy of someone that does know better. I just thought it was interesting through this conversation that I end up thinking about that, and it just more and more makes me appreciate those books and Brandon Sanderson's writing.
No, definitely. Like I honestly, I'll have to reread Mistborn again. I think I know some of those specific themes that you're talking about, especially with, like, sometimes it does take a single person with the ambition and the vision to kind of drag everybody along with them. Otherwise, if everything was always left up to the collective, would things get done? Yeah. Right? Because, like, inspiration is a very, as we understand it right now, it's a very individual thing. I wonder how true that is. I wonder how much information that we're, gestating from external sources, all of it, by the way. Yeah. And like, we get that inspiration, but it's through our interactions with people in the world that inspiration comes. So maybe inspiration collectively could actually be more powerful and more profound because you have exponentially increased the amount of subconscious process that, like, ends up clicking a light bulb, right? It's almost like our entire world is made up of extremely small parts working in tandem to make a bigger thing work. Life is the perfect example of that, but not just life, also the solar systems. Like, the solar system doesn't work the way it does without every single celestial body in the place that it is. Right. It all serves a purpose. The Amazon rainforest doesn't exist without the Sahara Desert blowing dust over the ocean and dropping its carbon into that system to feed it. Like, these things need each other to survive. They're interdependent. And the universe, the more you look at it, the more you realize that absolutely everything is interdependent. Right. And I think it's foolish to think we are separate from that. I think it's reasonable to make the hypothesis that if we did put ourselves together and write our stories throughout human history, like the Tower of Babel, of all the humans getting together, building a tower to themselves, and eclipsing God, and then God being like, well, I don't like that, and then scatters them all out throughout the world, right? Yeah. But like a testament as to what humanity can accomplish as a collection of those higher level entities acting as lower level entities to power this greater entity that isn't from your perspective, right? Our cell's perspective, they don't know that it's a body. Right. They just know that they're next to these couple cells, and this is my job. Like, it's the same thing with humans on a bigger scale. But like there are emergent phenomena when you put a company of people together. But like I mean, there's mob mentality, right? They talk about the individual intelligence of a single person going down when you increase the amount of people that are in the same room. Once it eclipses a certain threshold. And that just means that the individual is dumb, but that the hive has taken on like a mind of its own. And while you're still your own thinking, feeling person, like you're caught up in the frequencies, right? In the brain frequencies of everybody that's around you. So like that like mob mentality, that hive mind, I think is a like we see it in life in like smaller animals that don't have base level intelligence that's really high, and that have to work together to create a greater intelligence. So I'm just saying, like, nobody is exempt from that. Anybody who could get themselves together and work in unison, and like even the solar systems to form a galaxy that's actually working and swirling, those solar systems, those stars have to be in their specific spots, and they're all being churned by a giant ass black hole in the middle that's keeping it all, that is, you know, hundreds of thousands of times more massive than anything else. And like all of it is working in concert. These things don't just exist on their own. They exist because of everything around it. And none of it would work if the things around it weren't there. Like, and like to think that we are separate from that is insane. It's insane. And I love the individualism of existence. I love that I get to sit here and be my own person and ponder existence and everything. And like, I want to acknowledge that individualism while also acknowledging that, like, I'm not the only one here. Yeah. And like why does my individualism, like, why is that always paramount priority over everything else? Right? Because clearly, if I look at the universe around me and my understanding of the universe, it tells me that I can't exist without the interdependency of everything around me. I can't drink water unless the guy down at the water plant is doing his job, making sure that the water's running for everyone in this neighborhood. The electricity doesn't work if the people and the technicians that work with that, like, these are things that I take for granted, right? But like, they're interdependent to my existence. So like even just the earth existing is interdependent to you existing. Like there's nothing separate. You're not separate from anything. I don't know who I'm ranting to. Yeah, that's it. That's all I got.
So Jorby supports communism.
Well, in its Marxist pure form, like the way it should work. And like the thing is like, and people will make the same argument for capitalism, that, you know, it's hijacked by bad actors. Like communism in other countries has been hijacked by bad actors, and it's not real communism. It's just like, you know, people who advocate for capitalism say that, you know, the U.S. isn't true capitalism right now. It's like crony capitalism is what they say. And so like I just to clarify, like, where I stand on it, like, I do think that something akin to communism is the right way forward. I do think there are issues, like you say, with, like, you know, is the collective hive always the answer, or is there something special to the inspiration and ambition of a single individual?
Right.
But I don't know, because think about let's say Sanderson again, right? With the powers, the 16 shards that are powers that, wait, how much have you?
I don't know anything about that yet, so probably a good idea not to go any further on it.
I can't spoil it.
I think you know what's really funny is that I had already created some sort of philosophy based off what I've read just from the two books. Not exactly about what you just said, but something that sounds familiar. So I think because I knew there was a connectedness, but I didn't know what it was. So I created my own philosophy. And you can actually ask my partner Tesla. I already actually talked about my potential philosophy, and it sounds slightly akin to maybe what you just mentioned. So I think he bases his.
Yeah, so he bases that specific part of the world to something in the real world. So like you might be on the right track there. I'm really curious.
It's interesting because I just theory crafted a bunch of potentials of what an interconnected thing could be.
Dude, just wait till you get the Stormlight,
and
bro.
already
wait till you get the Stormlight.
And already how good I think his diversion of his usage of tropes, his diversion of tropes, his ability to generate a unique approach on, again, already these magic systems, how his characters interact. I'm like, let me approach a larger world from that perspective. And that's how I came to some conclusion that's probably not extremely accurate, but like sounds akin to what you just said. So it's interesting that I was able, just from his,
I didn't say anything.
No, it's true. And that's why I said
it might catch you off guard.
I'm also making assumptions based off that short information you just gave me.
Yeah.
Because I already have an idea in mind that I'm connecting it to it, but it would be interesting if I was somewhat accurate, because that actually is just a testament to Sanderson's writing and his overall vision, that it was already palpable of what he might be making. So,
well, actually, if you read Well of Ascension, then you kind of understand the concepts like at least the initial concept that he's introducing to you on like the godly beings of the cosmos.
Right. There's something bigger
So
there
you're
about.
probably on the right track.
Okay.
There
Interesting. Yeah.
with
No,
like
it's
with Ruin and yeah.
and which is why again I'm very excited to read Hero of Ages, and then I'm just going to read everything in order because I thought about saving the Way of Kings stuff for last because I've heard it's the best, and I don't want his other books to not be as good. But I'm just going to read everything in order.
Era 2 Mistborn is really good. I think Era 2 Mistborn is like an evolution of Mistborn. Like
that's the other three books
era,
that come after.
There's 4. So there's a standalone initially where you're dealing with a villain, and he does it. He really wanted to write like a Lone Ranger style kind of Wild West like short novel. I think he did that to. I personally think he did it to like promote like the actual trilogy that was coming up. There are 3 books after that where the real trilogy starts. So the first book introduces you to a lot of the characters that you're going to be seeing, and then the next 3 books are the actual arc of the story. But the first one is a standalone,
like a little
story.
novella or whatever they're called.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of a novella, but it's a full novel. Or is it a full novel? I actually don't think it is, because I remember it being pretty quick. But yeah, I mean, I think you can go either way. I think if you're ready and you want to jump right into Way of Kings, man, go for it. That is honestly one of my favorite worlds ever created. I think it's awesome. I've read through it 3 times now. I almost started a 4th, but I've been reading some other things. Like I've been reading a lot of Joe Abercrombie lately, so that's been my latest obsession.
Yeah. Okay. Regardless, moral of the story here, because there might be some people that don't know what we're talking about. Read Brandon Sanderson books; they're phenomenal. I can't attest to the other ones you've mentioned because I haven't read them, but read Brandon Sanderson.
Oh, dude, and there like once you get through like Stormlight and you start reading all his little side stories and stuff, I don't know, like he just has so many cool little like planets and like systems that he clearly likes playing with his world building. It's what he's best at, and it's what I really love most about his writing. And like all stuff for that is just phenomenal.
I do have to go back and read Elantris because that was the first book, but
that's actually one of like 2. There's only 2 books I haven't read from him, and one was the one that he released off of his Kickstarter. And
Elantris, the Emerald Sea.
I held off on Elantris because everyone was like, "Yeah, that's when he was like first starting. This book is not as good as his others," and I'm like, I'll probably skip that one.
I heard it's not as good, but it's still a part of the
Cosmere and greater narrative. Yeah.
So
yeah, I might get the Cliff's Notes version of it, maybe.
Yeah, I'm gonna read it. Overall, besides the fact he has his flaws, every other sentence someone is nodding, someone is just, and she nodded, and he nodded. It's just or raised an eyebrow.
It's actually intentional. So it was funny because I read an article recently of a guy who went and spent like a day with him, and the guy himself is whatever. Honestly, like his opinion of him was very off base. It was really weird.
Oh, I remember this. Yes, I remember this.
Yeah,
and Brandon Sanderson had to create a whole. He wrote a whole.
He responded to it. Yeah. But like the thing in that article that guy did write, because it's part of what Brandon Sanderson talked about, is how he deliberately writes at a 6th grade reading level, so that like people can understand the
vocabulary wise, not content wise.
Vocabulary wise, yeah, not content wise. I think the content is still very like obviously like plenty of adults and older adults love this series. Like if you're a little older and you're hearing 6th grade reading level and you're like all of a sudden turned off, trust me, you really won't be able to tell, because he does a great job of just getting you interested in the world itself, and that's his strength is getting you interested.
His world building is phenomenal.
Yeah, but he deliberately writes that way so that as many people as possible can access it and read it and enjoy it. And I think that is an incredible skill to have and an incredible acknowledgement of like, not gating yourself off from people that might enjoy what you do.
It's interesting too, because when it comes to writing is again there are so many things that just come into storytelling, whether it's whether it's a specific trope or like, a Deus Ex Machina or something. And it's like, you see these things. And what I love about it is comparing the 2 books I was reading recently. Is I never finished the Harry Potter books. So I'm finishing those. And I just finished the Half-Blood Prince. Now, in my opinion, JK's writing vocabulary wise got more token-esque. Like it did get a lot more descriptive. It started, I'm like, you know what, her setting painting was a lot better. Like her ability to create an image and do it uniquely was a lot better. But overall, everything felt kind of expected. Any twists that happened didn't feel overwhelmingly large. Like it was still maybe something I didn't see, but it was like, okay, it just felt like the overall weight of the world had less impact because there were tropes that happened that just felt like they weren't done cleverly. But then you go to Brandon Sanderson, and in comparison, while reading Will of Ascension, it's like, sure, okay, everyone nods their head and raises their eyebrow, and descriptive wise, it's not much, but the way he describes stuff, for instance, you get a description of a character from the perspective of character A, but then later on in the book, you get a description of that same character from character B, and you get a little more information about that person or information from the perspective of a different character. And it's such a unique way. Instead of having, I think Brandon Sanderson's biggest skill is his exposition, because he doesn't just sit there and like, oh my God, in the Order of the Phoenix, the second to last chapter is literally Dumbledore sitting there and talking for 15 pages, right? Like it's him just explaining everything. It's just pure exposition at the end of a book, where a climax should be. But Brandon Sanderson
that's rough.
Is you get pieces as you go. The exposition happens from the perspective of the characters that you're seeing, rather than just there are a couple small, let me explain this to you, but it comes in a more natural, I'm experiencing these world with these characters way. And to me, that's good writing.
This is why we tell all new Sanderson readers to start with Mistborn, because he does do that really well in Mistborn. Get ready for Way
later
of Kings.
on. I've heard Way of Kings. I heard Way of Kings is same thing. Just
see, the thing is, you're really into it, so I think you're going to enjoy the first third of that book, like I did.
Yeah,
but it's a lot. Like he spends the first third of Way of Kings setting everything up, and like it's turned people off completely to the book, because some people just can't do that.
Yeah,
and that's why to get mitigated, everyone's like, start with Mistborn. That way, you know what you're getting into when you get to
his style. But to me, I prefer that, because I feel like when you do this, when you start just giving information to the reader without explaining it, you basically tell the reader, this world is existing whether you're here or not. Start taking it in. It doesn't feel like the world was built for me as a reader. It feels like the world was built and exists in its own right, and you're just getting a little window to look into it, and you start at a certain point in the journey of this world, and you just have to kind of start taking in the information, right? Which to me grounds the world as it exists for nothing other than itself, to exist for itself, not for me. And to me, I love that style of writing. And I can handle not really knowing what the hell's going on for a little bit, because I know eventually I will, and it's going to be incredible.
Yep. 100%.
And to me, I don't think, that's why I wanted to clarify, his writing style isn't sixth grade writing style. It's
reading level. That's different.
The actual writing itself is so aware and cleverly done. I mean, even down to a point where there's a couple times, like on the Deus Ex Machina thing of okay, well, some stories just have a hand of God come in. It's the character didn't actually solve their problem. I had a couple moments of that in Mistborn where I'm like, oh, of course, here it is. And then I start to realize, wait a minute. No, the only reason these things happened was because of what our main character had done earlier in the book. Sure, someone else or something else comes in, but it was a result of her actions throughout the story.
It was a consequence.
Right.
It was a consequence to a previous action.
Right. And I'm like, it really is, but isn't a Deus Ex Machina, because it was still, without this character, these things don't happen. And I'm like, that is a clever way to kind of build around,
break your rules without cheating
right.
your readers, right?
And to me, that's what's clever. It's self-aware writing, or it's writing-aware writing, while still also, I think the best stories use tropes, but I didn't think he used them in ways that make sense. Hunter x Hunter, if you've ever watched that.
Oh yeah, one of my favorite, if not my favorite.
It's incredible writing because it does use tropes, but it does it in a way that makes sense to the actual story. You have a trope.
It's funny. Yeah.
Makes sense. That's actually how it would play out.
It's a more recent anime, Jujutsu Kaisen, takes the
I've heard of that
like
one.
the shonen. Yeah, it takes like the shonen tropes, and it still has them, but it kind of flips them a little bit, or it flips the things that you might expect that should happen with the character that's in this thing, and it's very self-aware. I think it fourth walls itself a couple of times, but it on its own and like the actual story of it's great. It's a great anime. I actually highly recommend you watch it. New season's coming out soon, I think.
Who do you know who writes that one?
It's not Ufotable. Hang on.
Yeah, no worries. I was just because I had heard of that this was a good one to get if I liked Hunter x Hunter to watch.
It's Mappa, Studio Mappa.
Okay. You don't know
they've done like Attack on Titan, Chainsaw Man, if you've watched that recently.
I have not. I don't watch a lot of anime because I actually I'm gonna piss off any anime lovers out there. A lot of anime sucks.
That's facts.
That's facts. I thought Demon Slayer was mid. I really did. I thought I had too many problems with My Hero Academia. That to the point I couldn't keep watching. And I think Demon Slayer is beautiful, but I feel like it just there's no substance. It's it's like a trophy wife or something, right? Like it just
a trophy wife. It looks great, but there ain't anything underneath.
Yeah. And
what?
That's what I felt watching it, right? Maybe people will hate me for it, but I just find a lot of it's not that good, or at least not worth watching. I thought, because in my opinion, I thought Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood was good. I would give it probably a 7.5 to maybe an 8. I don't think I think a lot of people hyped it up too much for me, but I still thought it was really good, especially for its time. Yeah. I think what it did, but it definitely isn't like a 10 out of 10 for me, for like it is for some people. So it's I don't know.
I think you're fair. There's some anime I really like, but overall, like I just try not to pretend that it's more than it is. With the ones I do, there's a lot I can't tolerate, just because it's like, I don't know, like some of it I feel like, yeah, if I was 18 I wouldn't care about any of this, but like a lot of it's just very it's written for a different age.
Yeah, fair.
A lot of it is like, but some of the more like mature animes that come out can be very good. Even like some of the slice of life stuff, like there's one Spy Family that I've actually really enjoyed.
Tessa's been reading the manga and she loves it.
Yeah,
she loves it.
Yeah, it's honestly really fun. But yeah, like I haven't been watching a ton of anime. It's like because a lot of it nowadays, like it just doesn't strike me the same way. They're still my favorites and stuff. Like Samantha and I are watching, or we're going through very slowly, Yu Yu Hakusho, and that show has so many problems, but like I don't know, I still enjoy watching it. I'm like, yeah, this is cheesy. I'm like, yeah, that doesn't make any sense. I'm like, sure, this is happening for some reason, but yeah, let's do it. And like there are still moments where like it gets my emotions still sometimes if they set up a scene right.
Yeah, no, it is Tagashi. Yeah. That's the same guy that did Hunter x Hunter, right? I was
looking.
Yeah, it is. Yep.
Yeah.
So Yu Yu was his first one.
Yoshihiro Tagashi.
Yeah, Tagashi, and then I never heard of Level E, but then I do know that he did Hunter x Hunter.
I would say Hunter x Hunter was better.
Yeah, I feel like
he just straight up cheats in Yu Yu Hakusho. He straight up cheats. He's like, yeah, okay, here's this ethereal energy that everybody has, which is fine. You know what? Fine. You know, Sanderson does that with Stormlight. That's fine. But then it's like just the blatant mid-tournament power up out of nowhere. Like there's things like Fairy Tail, right? Which deliberately tell you the power of friendship is what's getting you through. And then they got the cool power up and he beats the bad guy, or he falls again, which I think is so stupid. Like if you're going to give him the power up, like why would you make him fail again? Like that's just objectively bad writing. And why I don't watch Fairy Tail. But Yu Yu Hakusho, it's the same BS. It's like, Yeah, I'm sitting there. And like, they're like, yeah, Yusuke's special ability is his spirit energy rises and falls with the opponent that he's fighting against. I'm like, that is absolute BS, bro. Get out of here. You can't sit. And like, they do the same thing with like Kuwabara, where like Kuwabara, like he's like he's not like a berserker, but he's like a tank with reflect damage, where like he has to take like an inhumane amount of beating, like something that would have killed 20 people. But because he grew up with an older sister and she beat him up all the time, he could take a lot of hits, which is funny. And I don't have a problem with like that kind of backstory for a character. That's funny to me, right? Anime can be funny like that. But then like he just straight up like takes hits and survive. Like I watched this dude get stabbed by like a million tentacle tendrils, and he fell to the ground, and he somehow was not dead. Yeah. How are you not dead? No, he leveled up, bro.
He leveled up.
Like, come on, dude.
That's funny. Yeah. I don't mind some. I mean, here's the thing. The reality is all of these things are not realistic, right? But as long you have to, I also don't mind soft magic, but I'm a big fan of hard magic, which is why I like Sanderson, because there's when rules are set out ahead of time. That's why I love Hunter x Hunter. There's rules that this magic has to exist within, right? And then you have to, the story can move on from there. And maybe you find yourself in a spot where like, how do I write myself out of this? Well, you have to then let the story tell itself. If a character gets in trouble or dies or something that you didn't originally plan for, then you have to let that story tell that story because of the rules you set out. And respecting the rules you've laid out as an author is super important to me, and I respect that when that can happen. So yeah, when stuff just happens, that's what triggers me the most, is like when you lay out a rule and then you don't listen to it. Yeah, that to me is objectively bad writing. I hate that.
Or at least you ignore it. You ignore it in ways that aren't narratively useful. It's like, I feel like it's okay to break your rule if it's like, if the rule of cool applies that one time, right? But like, you have to establish trust. Actually, Sanderson talks about this in his lectures that I've watched. I don't know if you've watched.
I've watched a couple lectures, but not this one specifically.
Yeah, he talks like, the rules are important to set, but one nice thing about rules is that if you do it right, you can break them and make a big moment. And it just depends on like how you execute it. So like straight up MacGuffins are no fun, right? But like if you MacGuffin it because it's like this character's entire journey, and you'll learn this you'll learn about the characters in Stormlight, but you're kind of getting a really first appetite with it with Mistborn, is that all the characters have these internal struggles that they're dealing with, and a big part of the story is those characters like either coming to acceptance with the thing that they're struggling with about themselves, kind of like a self-actualization and self-empowerment, but like there's a whole journey to get there, and at the end of that journey there might be like a slight rule break that happens because that goal was met, because this character's journey, like because of all the things that have happened, like I've come to this conclusion now about myself, and like because of this acceptance of myself, and it's powerful because you've been with this, it's not out of nowhere. This person just doesn't out of nowhere go like, oh, I've figured out that I'm an awful person. It's like, no, is this person throughout 3 or 4 books, like really wrestling with the problem that they have, and like several times failing to overcome when it looks like they're about to overcome. And so like you've built this rapport with the reader and this character, and like you're so invested in this person, like just if you just could like know that like it's actually like this, then like you could overcome it because they're capable of it, right? And so you hit it, but like that capability was always there. So is it technically a rule break?
I was gonna say no more on Way of Kings either, because I want to make sure I experience.
I haven't said anything. Okay, I have not spoiled anything. I have been very specific with how I said this.
Yeah, fair enough. I'm what was I gonna say? Is the shit? I did the ADHD thing. Where am I going? Oh yeah,
having a lot. Having a lot here.
Yeah. No, but the thing is, like, even in Mistborn, I found that the writing didn't break it. It just was, the space was left.
You have it.
Open.
Read Hero of Ages.
Yeah, that's fair. I feel like in anything that it felt like it was close to breaking, it was actually left open to that opportunity ahead of time. Right. And to me, that still feels thought out. right?
That's
Like it's
okay,
still,
right?
yeah. Like it was,
That's why I say like it's slight.
yeah. Okay. Anyways, enough on these books because
We've been
if
on it for a
viewers
bit.
are going to be like, what are they talking about? Hopefully, they're just interested in the passion. I told you, people like listening to passion. What I want to do one final thing on the way out, a rapid fire section here, and then we'll let you go. I figured it was appropriate to ask this to you, or I didn't fine tune this in any way. It was very simple. But I wanted to get an AI to generate questions for you to answer. I felt like you're the most appropriate person. It's very straightforward, very simple, which is why I want quick answers. Because all I did was say, Jorby's a Rocket League commentator, and I'm going to do a podcast with him. What question should I ask?
Okay,
they're not
very
deep.
simple
They're
prompt.
not deep
This should be
questions.
interesting.
They're not deep questions. So we're going to rapid fire to get through these. Some of them are good. Some of them actually could generate longer conversations. Which
all right, let's go. I'm ready.
Episode. Okay. Rapid fire. Let's go. All right. 1. What inspired you to pursue a career in gaming and streaming?
It was what inspired it. Probably sitting watching Evo in my basement with my best friend at the time, watching 2013 Evo, and watching Armada versus was it HBox or was it Mewtwo King in the final? And I was listening to the commentary, and I was just like, dude, this is awesome. I want to do this.
That's awesome.
I want to do this.
Hell yeah. Cool. It's funny because my inspiration to cast came from doing Melee tournaments.
Oh, really?
I would
say my bigger inspiration was actually Smite, because Smite is something I played. Like I've over 5,000 hours in the game, and I played it when it was in beta in 2012. Played it up to about 2016, and like obviously Rocket League was out at that point. So like slowly as Rocket League started taking up more of my time.
Yeah.
But I religiously watched the Smite World Championships, or SPL, Smite Pro League. I went to the Smite World Championship in season 3. Like I was super into it. That was something I wanted to do. I like adored the commentators. And like, that's really what, like, cause then Rocket League came out and I was like, I'm grinding. Like I want to do this.
Yeah.
Like, so yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome to see it come to fruition too.
Yeah. It's crazy.
I'm proud
it's
of you,
crazy.
buddy.
Thank you, man.
All right. What have been some of your I'm only going to do half of these because it gave me 19 questions. I'm not doing all of them. I'll save some for another episode when you come on in the future.
Let's go, AI. Way to go. Toro.
What have been some of your most memorable moments while casting or streaming?
Season 7 Grands is burned into my mind forever.
Fair.
Like that was like, I remember sitting in the stands as a fan at season 3 and staring up, and I was sitting next to, I think it was Lumen. And I said to him, I was like, I'm going to cast that grand final one day. And then, so season 7, like, was a culmination of all of that. And I got it. I did it.
That's awesome.
So that's like, yeah, that's definitely a very fond memory for me.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, that's cool. Good job, AI. Good questions.
Yeah, good questions.
Right.
I like it.
Some repeat, but what advice would you give to an aspiring streamer or caster? One quick piece of advice.
Do it because you love it and not because there's like something at the end of it. I know Garrett said something similar about playing professionally in his interview with you, and I think it extends to gaming and streaming. Like like seeing it as the only goal for you to do it for a living. To me, you have to love it. Like there were many, I did it for free for a very long time. I still worked a regular job. I mean, I was unemployed for a while and I still did it. Like as much as I possibly could, but I did it because I loved it. And I enjoyed every single night, like casting 5 nights a week for 5 hours in front of 30 people. Like nobody knew who I was, but like, I just wanted to commentate so badly. And I think that it's the love of it that keeps you going through the hard times. Amen. Because there have been hard times,
Amen. Also, thanks for watching the episode.
Yeah, of course. Love these, man.
That's my takeaway. That's the same question. What led you to pursue casting for Rocket League? We'll skip that one. What have been some of the biggest challenges you faced while pursuing a career in gaming and streaming?
Biggest challenge? It would be dealing with not individual criticism, but the volume of criticism.
Yeah.
It was after 2017 Gnarly. Like the broadcast just had not gone well that day, and I was getting absolutely rinsed so badly. And I laid in my hotel room that night, and I just remember being so disillusioned with everything, and like wondering if I was really made out for this, like because I had taken a beating that day.
That sounds like me season 1.
And
I feel
it was
that.
like it was there. I mean, I was thinking about it, like laying there, that like I might just quit this. But I'm glad I didn't.
I'm glad you didn't either.
I let that. I'm glad I didn't let that emotion rule me.
I think everyone can say they're glad you didn't. What are your give me 3. What are your favorite games to play or watch?
Oh, Rocket League.
Of course.
Favorite game to watch other than Rocket League would be Counter-Strike.
Of course.
Love CS.
Yeah.
And then to play other than Rocket League, pretty much anything. Like I love sandbox type games where I can build things. Like I was super into like Planet Coaster for a long time.
Nice.
Or like I played like Parkitect, like not just theme park sims, but like other like sandboxy things.
Valheim,
that I
Minecraft.
really love. Love Valheim. Well, Minecraft. How could I forget the one that I've sank so much time into? When people ask me like, what are the games you've sunk a ton of time into? Minecraft always escapes my brain, but literally it's in my top 5 most game played, like most games played ever. So weird how it always exits it. Like I never think of Minecraft, but it definitely had a big impact on me as a gamer.
This is funny. At one point, I must have asked it to give me more because it says, continuing on with the questions, here are some more to ask Joey Ahrens.
Wait, did you say Joey Ahrens? Did you say Jorby? Did it know me?
I don't know. I actually can't remember what my prompt exactly was. I didn't write it down. Maybe it knew. It must have pulled your liquid.
We talked about the future being the singularity. Not now. Not now.
That's great. So I'm. This is one because you got to look inward. This will be the last one, and I'm gonna make you talk good about yourself. So lose the humbleness here. What do you think sets you apart from other casters and streamers?
I do think it's my energy. I think that my energy and my passion is innate, and I think, you know, as people probably have seen during this podcast, is like, it doesn't really matter what the subject is. If I like it,
we got a couple rile-ups.
I talk extremely passionately about it, and yeah, like it's never forced. It is always just 100% genuinely me. I'm very fond of saying that the Jorby you hear on the broadcast is just Jorby plus. Like it's not this caricature of myself. It's just me, like presenting the game to you in the only way I know how, and being myself. And I think I do that. I do me better than anybody else.
Which is a good thing. It would really suck if you didn't.
That would suck. Better. Yeah, if someone else did me better.
That's great. Well, on that, I mentioned at the beginning that when it comes to ADHD, we'd either have the shortest or the longest episode, and unless I'm mistaken, this is now
2.5 hours.
This is now the longest episode, only by 2 minutes. There was where was it? It was Spaceman was an hour 58.
The other ADHD.
Yeah, right.
We beat him. Let's go.
You're just over him. So new record set by Jorby. I gotta say, dude, thanks for sitting down. I've wanted to just. I love talking to you. So this
was great, man. This was every bit as fun as I thought it was going to be.
Hell yeah!
Thanks for bringing me on.
I appreciate it, and I did not get near to talking about everything. So sometime in the future, we'll have to cycle you back on.
Let's do it again.
We can waste some more of your time. Hell yeah. Thank you so much. Shout outs to Jorby coming on, and shout outs to everyone that's listening. If you got through this entire thing, you're fantastic, or you just had a very long drive and commute to work. But thank you for listening. If you're on Spotify, make sure, of course, hit the follow button. The episodes do come out the second I'm done editing them behind the paywall. But again, I suggest not paying unless you really, really want to support it. And I really thank you if you do, because it comes out on YouTube every Monday at 12 Eastern time, and then on Spotify for free on Tuesday at 12. If you do want to get involved in discussion, comments below, get down there, suggest the next guest that you'd like to see. I continue to like to see some ones that maybe I didn't think of right off the bat. Either way, thank you for watching, and we'll see you on the next episode.